So, what do you know about Mike in 2010? Why he would be so inclined?
Well, probably the same things that you know. It is pretty. I've heard from the very highest levels of this case from multiple people that there were two reasons why Mike might have been very amenable to helping out. The first was that he was concerned that the real reason they were speaking to him might have been because of some cock shots that he had sent of himself through a Penn State phone to a Penn State co-ed. And the other reason is that there is quite a bit of evidence. In fact, Rodney Erickson apparently was found to have left some, bizarrely, left some evidence, or at least an indication that Mike McQueary had a gambling issue that he might have been rather concerned about. Do either of those things jive with what you have been hearing?
Yeah. I both those things I'm going to report in the story, and the cockshot stuff I have down to the actual minute of when he sent it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have that nailed. I have documentation, I have phone records.
Awesome.
I have all of it. So, and it was in April of 2010, and I have so that's nailed, and the gambling stuff I have a lot on that. So, so I'm going to report all that. And then, do you have the timeline of McQueary? Are you familiar with the timeline of what happened when they showed up on McQueary's door for when he finally sat down with them?
No, I do not. I'd love to see that or hear that.
I have all of that, which will be in my story. How many weeks went by? How they initially showed up at his doorstep. He was at the Lash Building at 7:00 one evening. I know the date and the time. And his wife answered the door. Mike was at the Lash Building. He freaked out. He called a couple of people that night who I've talked to and how panicked he was. I have all of this.
Wow.
And then a week and a half later, he meets with them in a park opposite the chapel where Joe Paterno's family worshipped, on a park bench in the evening after practice one night, and tells them nothing. Wants to sort of know what it's about. He's freaked out more. And then it's not until a week and a half later, when he's lawyered up, that he sits down and gives the statement. So what's great about that is it illustrates, if he is so concerned about the fact that he saw a sexual assault,
right,
the moment they show up, even though it's 9 years later, he would instantly say, yeah, let me meet with you. Immediately, I'm really concerned about this. Instead, for several weeks, he's negotiating, he's meeting, doing reconnaissance, what do they want, and everything else. And he has testified, as you probably know, that he knew when the phone call came they were calling about Jerry Sandusky. That's bullshit.
Right.
That is just absolute crap.
Right.
He knew sort of instinctively that call was coming. Now, it was in the wind, obviously, that there was a Sandusky investigation.
Right.
But he had these other issues.
Right.
That he knows about.
Well, that's great stuff, Don.
You know, I've been told by different sources that McQueary himself took photos of his own genitals and sent them to Penn State co-eds. Have you heard any of that kind of information?
Well, I've heard that information, but it's not in my story. So, that's your answer. I didn't find it germane to the story that we did, and so that's why it's not there.
You didn't. In other words, you believe it, but you just didn't think it was important in the story?
No, I wouldn't say that necessarily that I believe it. What I would say is it didn't rise to the level of being something that, Kevin, that we wanted to put in the story. There are discussions about it. I'm not saying whether I believe it or don't believe it, but journalistically, we had an issue with it. We didn't publish it.
What was the issue with it journalistically? Are there editors in this particular? I'm just trying to get to the background of how these stories come and get to fruition. Were there editors who had a say over that they wouldn't want you to put it in there?
Evan, every story I do, I work with editors. We make decisions on what we publish based on what our sources are, what we have. Every single fact in the story, there are editors involved. So, yes, it's a decision that was made in consultation with editors, but everything that's in the story or not in the story are between me and my editors. But, that's as much as I'm going to say about it. It's not in the story, and it's not there for good reason.
And you were comfortable with it not being in the story? In other words, it wasn't you being pressured not to put it in.
Yeah, there's been some speculation about that, but no, I was absolutely comfortable about it not being the story. Both those things I'm going to report in the story, and the hotshot stuff I have down to the actual minute of when he sent it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I have that nailed. I have documentation, I have phone records.
Awesome.
I have all of it. So, and it was in April of 2010, and I have so that's nailed, and the gambling stuff I have a lot on that. So I'm going to report all that.